The debate over Shedeur Sanders' NFL future has gone from a quiet preseason talking point to a full-on media storm. And at the center of it all, one eyebrow-raising comment from Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski that lit fire under some of the biggest voices in sports. Shedeur Sanders, the rookie quarterback with the NFL bloodline and the swagger to match, has been quietly turning heads in Cleveland, not because he's been given the keys to the offense. Far from it. But because even when he's running with third and fourth string players, if you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. He's making magic happen. Crisp reads, quick decisions, poise you can't teach. And yet, when asked about Sanders' path to the starting role, Stefanski didn't give the endorsement fans and analysts were hoping for. Instead, he kept it cautious, talking about development time and earning reps. It wasn't dismissal, but also wasn't the kind of green light that gets a rookie into first-team huddles. Enter Stephen A. Smith. If there's one thing Stephen A. loves, it's a storyline with a hint of injustice. And to him, Stefanski's hesitation was practically begging for a rebuttal. On his show, Stephen A. didn't hold back. This young man, he began, pointing right at the camera, has done everything you could ask for, and then some. And you mean to tell me he can't get first-team reps? You mean to tell me you can watch what he's done in the preseason and say, we'll wait? Kevin Stefanski, with all due respect, that's nonsense. Stephen A. wasn't alone. Dan Orlovsky, former NFL quarterback and now one of the sharper X's and O's minds in the media, echoed the sentiment. Orlovsky broke it down in detail. Sanders' mechanics, his ability to extend plays without forcing bad throws, and his knack for elevating the guys around him even when the supporting cast wasn't top tier. He's throwing to receivers who might not make the roster, Orlovsky said, and he's still moving the ball. You think that doesn't translate when you put better players around him? Come on. Adam Schefter, who's usually the measured insider rather than the emotional commentator, even weighed in. His take was less about the X's and O's and more about momentum. There's buzz around Shedeur Sanders, Schefter said. Real buzz. That doesn't happen by accident. You can feel it in the building. You can see it on social media. There's an inevitability here. The question isn't if he'll start, it's when. And that's the heart of this whole thing. Inevitability. When you have multiple respected voices all agreeing that a player has it, and that player is consistently performing in limited opportunities, the pressure on the coaching staff starts to mount. Every good preseason drive, every accurate sideline throw, every calm read under pressure, it all fuels the why not now conversation. For Sanders, this is both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, he's earning national recognition before he's even taken a regular season snap. On the other hand, the louder the media gets, the more his situation becomes a public referendum. Every decision Stefanski makes will now be viewed through the lens of, why isn't Shedeur in? To be fair, Stefanski isn't crazy for being cautious. Quarterback transitions are delicate, and rushing a rookie into the starting job can backfire. But the counter-argument, Stephen A.'s argument, is that Sanders isn't your typical rookie. He's already shown he can operate at NFL speed. He's already displayed leadership traits that veterans respect. And most importantly, he's already proven he can do all of this without the full benefit of first-team protection, receivers, or play calling tailored to him. Think about this, Stephen A. said, leaning forward like he was delivering a closing argument in court. If he's doing this with the backups, what do you think happens when you give him Amari Cooper? When you give him Nick Chubb in the backfield? When you give him the actual offensive line? You're telling me that's not worth finding out. Dan Orlovsky took it even further, arguing that the reps themselves are part of the evaluation process. The preseason is exactly when you test these things, he said. If you're going to experiment with giving a young guy some run with the starters, now's the time. Because if he thrives, you've got a decision to make. And if he struggles, you've still got time to recalibrate before the season starts. The part that's really stirring the pot is the draft factor. Shedeur Sanders was a fifth-round pick. Fifth For a quarterback with his pedigree, production, and performance under pressure, that's borderline disrespect in the eyes of his supporters. And now, with each preseason snap, it's starting to look like teams who passed on him might have made a mistake. Adam Schefter didn't dance around it. If this kid was a first-round pick, he said, he'd already be taking first-team reps. The only reason we're even having this conversation is because of where he was drafted. And that's not about talent. That's about perception. That's the crux of it. Sanders is fighting not just for a spot on the depth chart, but against the invisible politics of draft capital. In the NFL, the higher you're picked, the more opportunities you get. Lower picks often have to be twice as good to get half the chance. Right now, Shedeur is making a compelling case for why he deserves that chance. And as the preseason rolls on, each game becomes another exhibit in that case. Fans are starting to get involved too. Brown supporters have been lighting up message boards and social feeds, calling for Sanders to get more looks. If he's the future, start the future now. One comment read. Another fan put it more bluntly. We've seen enough checkdowns from the veterans. Give the kid the ball. And here's where it gets tricky for Stefanski. Coaches like to control the narrative inside their building. But when the national media, local fans, and even neutral analysts start aligning on the same point, that narrative starts slipping out of their hands. Every cautious answer Stefanski gives about Sanders' timeline now feels like it's under a microscope. Is it genuine development strategy? Is it reluctance to disrupt the current quarterback room? Or is it simply an old-school mindset that rookies need to wait their turn? Stephen A. isn't buying the patience angle. You've got a quarterback who's shown poise, accuracy, leadership, and the ability to move the offense in live NFL action, he said. And you want to wait? For what? So you can keep losing winnable games? Even for those who agree with Stefanski, the margin for keeping Sanders sidelined is shrinking. 1 or 2 slow starts from the current QB1, and the calls for Shedeur will get deafening. And that might be the most dangerous part of this for Stefanski, because the more Sanders proves himself in preseason, the more any early season struggles from the starter will look like stubbornness instead of strategy. Dan Orlovsky summed it up neatly. This isn't about skipping steps. It's about recognizing when the guy you drafted is already ahead of the curve. And for what I've seen, Shedeur Sanders is ahead of the curve. Adam Schefter, in his calm, matter-of-fact way, might have said it best. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And that when might be sooner than people think. For now, the Browns have a decision to make, and the rest of us have a front-row seat to watch it unfold. Because if Shedeur Sanders keeps playing like this, Kevin Stefanski won't just be answering questions from Steven. What makes this entire Shedeur Sanders situation so electric is that it feels like the perfect storm of talent, timing, and tension. On one side, you've got a young quarterback who's been everything the scouting report said he was, and more since the moment he walked into camp. On the other, you've got a head coach who insists on pacing that progress, keeping him buried on the depth chart while analysts, fans, and even opposing players are starting to whisper, why not him? The Browns didn't draft Shedeur to be a camp arm. That much is obvious now. 5th round or not, he's been out there in the preseason, making plays you expect from polished veterans, reading coverages in real time, manipulating defenders with his eyes, putting the ball exactly where it needs to be. This isn't just rookie flash. It's controlled, repeatable execution. And that's where the disconnect starts. Kevin Stefanski's public comments have been cautious, maybe even a little guarded. He talks about Shedeur's work ethic, his ability to learn the system, his future potential, but always with that underlying tone of eventually. The problem is, eventually doesn't sit well when your rookie is already outperforming expectations. It's why Stephen A. Smith pounced on the story. His whole brand is built on challenging the status quo. And in his eyes, Stefanski's patience is less about protecting Shedeur and more about sticking to an outdated playbook. To Stephen A., this isn't just about giving a rookie a shot. It's about giving the right rookie the shot he's earned. You don't hold back a quarterback who's showing you he can win football games, Stephen A. said during his segment. You don't keep him in the shadows because of some unwritten rule about rookies waiting their turn. If he's ready, he's ready. And from what I'm seeing, Shedeur Sanders is ready. Dan Orlovsky backed him up, but with more technical insight. He pointed out that Shedeur's poise in the pocket is already better than many second-year starters. That is decision-making speed. How quickly he goes from first read to second to third isn't something you often see from young players adjusting to NFL speed. Quarterback play is about trust, Orlovsky explained. Trusting what you see, trusting your protection, and trusting that if you make the right read, the play will work. Shedeur plays like he trusts himself already. That's why he looks so comfortable out there. The numbers from his preseason snaps tell part of the story, but the context tells the rest. Most of his work has come with receivers and linemen who are fighting for roster spots themselves, meaning protection has been shaky and separation downfield hasn't been great. Despite that, Shedeur's kept the offense moving, avoided backbreaking mistakes, and shown leadership that gets noticed even without a mic in his face. And here's where Adam Schefter's take lands like a hammer. If he's doing this with the 3s and 4s, what happens when you put him behind the 1s? When you give him legitimate weapons? You can't tell me that's not worth finding out. The elephant in the room is the Browns' current quarterback situation. It's not like they're sitting on an MVP candidate in his prime. The starter is serviceable, yes, but far from untouchable. That means there's a path, maybe a short one, to Sanders seeing the field. Every time the offense sputters, every missed opportunity in the red zone, the calls for Shedeur will grow louder. Right now, the coaching staff has the luxury of framing the conversation as development. Once the regular season starts, that framing changes. If the team is losing games they should be winning, patience becomes a liability. And the worst thing a coach can do in the NFL is look like they're ignoring a solution that's right in front of them. That's why this debate feels so combustible. Stefanski is trying to manage the timeline. The media and fans are trying to accelerate it. Somewhere in between, Shedeur is just doing what he's always done. Stay ready, keep his head down, and let his game talk. It's also worth remembering the path that got him here. Shedeur was drafted in the 5th round, a decision many now see as a mistake by teams that passed on him. The Browns took the shot, and now they might be sitting on one of the biggest steals of the draft. But a steal is only valuable if you use it. Letting a talent like that sit too long risks losing the momentum he's building, not just for himself, but for the locker room. Players notice when someone's balling out in practice and preseason games. They notice when the guy running the scout team is consistently sharp. And if those players start believing Shedeur gives them the best chance to win, that belief will eventually make its way into the coach's office, whether anyone says out loud or not. Stephen A. has a knack for voicing what people are thinking, but won't say on the record. If you keep Shedeur Sanders on the sideline when he's clearly ready to contribute, he warned, you're not just holding him back, you're holding the team back. And then there's the fan factor. Browns fans are notoriously passionate, and they're not shy about letting the organization know how they feel. If Sanders has another strong showing in the next preseason game, you can expect chants, signs, and endless online campaigns pushing for him to get first-team reps. That public pressure might not sway Stefanski directly, but it changes the environment. It puts every coaching decision under a magnifying glass. If the team starts slow and Sanders is still holding a clipboard, every loss will be framed as the game where they didn't play Shedeur. Dan Orlovsky sees the writing on the wall. The best way to control the narrative is to get ahead of it. If you think Shedeur's the future, start building toward that future now. Give him a package of plays with the starters. See how he handles it, and let the team rally around him. Adam Schefter's prediction is less about if and more about when. This feels like one of those situations where the shift happens quickly, he said. 1 week he's a rookie getting developmental reps, and the next week he's taking over. The buzz is already there. It just needs the opportunity. For Shedeur, the key will be to keep stacking good days. Every sharp practice. Every clean series in a game. Every moment where he looks like the calmest guy in a huddle while chaos swirls around him. Those are the things that turn eventually into right now. And for Stefanski, the challenge is to navigate that shift without losing the locker room or the narrative. Because once enough people believe Shedeur should be starting, keeping him on the sideline stops looking like development and starts looking like stubbornness. The truth is, Shedeur Sanders' NFL story is going to happen. The only variable left is timing. And right now, the timing feels like it's accelerating with every snap he takes. If the Browns are smart, They won't wait until the pressure is unbearable. They'll lean into it while it's still in their control, because a moment that, when becomes now, all eyes will be on Shedeur, and the NFL will be ready to see if the hype matches reality. The when question is the kind that can hang over a team all season. It starts as a whisper in training camp, a casual, he looks good, from a beat reporter, or a passing remark from a veteran teammate. Then it grows. By the time preseason is over, it's a chorus, fans, analysts, and even opposing players asking why the rookie isn't getting more shot. For Shedeur Sanders, that timeline is speeding up fast. He's already made an impression without the benefit of premier reps or supporting cast stock with first-teamers. That's the part driving so much of the debate. He's producing with players who are fighting for the last spots on the roster, guys who might not be around by week 1. Stephen A. Smith sees this as proof of concept. If you can do it with the backups, he said, you can definitely do it with the starters. The game doesn't suddenly get harder when you've got better protection and better weapons. If anything, it gets easier. That logic isn't complicated. Great quarterbacks elevate their teammates. But in the NFL, the difference between catching a pass from your WR5 versus Amari Cooper is night and day. If Sanders is already executing without the benefit of chemistry with top talent, the thought of what he could do with a full arsenal is hard to ignore. Dan Orlovsky, who's made a career out of breaking down quarterback play on film, pointed to Sanders' pre-snap work as another reason to push him forward. He's diagnosing blitzes before the snap, adjusting protections, and setting up hot routes like a veteran. That's not normal for a rookie in his first camp. You don't sit that kind of understanding on the bench indefinitely. Adam Schefter's input was quieter, but no less pointed. Teams have a window with a young quarterback where the contract, the roster, and the momentum all line up, he said. You don't want to waste that window. The clock's already ticking. That clock is what Stefanski has to manage. Start Sanders too soon, and you risk stunting development if things go sideways. Wait too long, and you risk missing the opportunity entirely. Or worse, losing the locker room's buy-in if they start to believe the better player is sitting on the sideline. It's a balancing act. But the balancing act gets harder when the rookie keeps checking every box you put in front of him. Strong camp? Check. Solid preseason debut? Check. Consistency in follow-up appearances? Check. Teammates praising his leadership? Check again. The only box left is, can he do it against top-tier competition? And you can't answer that without giving him the reps. This is where Stephen A. hammered his point home. You're not going to find out in a controlled scrimmage. You're not going to find out throwing him in at the end of a blowout. You find out when he's in the middle of the game with the starters, with the scoreboard tight, and you say, all right, kid, let's see what you've got. The interesting wrinkle is that Sanders himself hasn't been campaigning for more reps, at least not publicly. He's been measured in interviews, talking about learning from the veterans, trusting the process, and making the most of every snap he's given. That restraint only strengthens his case in the eyes of some analysts. Dan Orlovsky put it this way: the loudest guys in camp are usually the ones who have something to prove. The ones you really need to watch are the quiet ones who keep stacking days. That's Shedeur. He's not chasing headlines, he's chasing execution. That quiet confidence is dangerous, in the best way, for a coaching staff trying to slow play his rise. Because when the rookie isn't pushing for more and still building momentum, it becomes harder to justify not testing him in a bigger role. The fans can sense it, too. Cleveland's preseason games have already turned into something of a Shedeur showcase. With every snap, he takes drawing louder reactions than some regular season plays. The more he produces, the more those reactions will grow. And here's the unspoken part. NFL front offices don't just watch their own rookies. Other team scouts are watching, too. If Shedeur keeps flashing, his name will start coming up in trade calls, especially from quarterback-needy teams willing to bet on his upside. The Browns can either ride that wave themselves or risk watching him succeed somewhere else. Schefter hinted at this reality. You have to be careful. When a player's value starts climbing and you're not using him, other teams take notice. Then you got a decision. Play him, move him, or watch his contract run out while someone else cashes in on potential. The Browns, of course, aren't likely to move on from Sanders anytime soon. fifth-round pick or not. He's already shown the kind of traits you can build a future around. But if they want that future to arrive in Cleveland instead of somewhere else, the plan can't be only about patience. It has to be about opportunity. Stephen A. sees it as a risk-reward equation. The risk of starting him early is maybe he struggles and you go back to the veteran. The reward is you find out you've got your guy right now. I'll take those odds. Even Stefanski's defenders are starting to hedge their position. They still argue for development, but more in the sense of incremental exposure. Give Sanders a series or two with the starters in the next preseason game, then maybe a half in the one after that. It's a compromise approach that keeps the growth curve, but also gives fans and analysts something to sink their teeth into. That might be the smartest short-term play. It gives the Browns a way to say, we're not ignoring what he's doing, while still controlling the pace. And if he thrives in those situations, they'll have the evidence to justify expanding his role further. Of course, the danger of dipping your toe in is that you might get pulled all the way in. If Sanders lights it up with the starters, you can't just put that back on the shelf. Once the locker room sees it, once the fans see it, once the league sees it, when question becomes a demand for a now, Dan Orlovsky thinks that's inevitable. If he plays with the ones and looks like he belongs, that's it. You're not going back. You're not explaining to your team why the guy who just scored 2 touchdowns and a half is suddenly standing on the sideline. Schefter's tone was even more direct. This isn't just a quarterback competition. It's a timeline competition. The timeline is moving, and the Browns have to decide if they're leading it or chasing it. For Shedeur Sanders, all of this noise is just that, noise, at least publicly. The people who know him best say he's been unfazed by the chatter, focused only on film reps and the next throw. That's the kind of mindset that turns media speculation into reality. And for Cleveland, reality might be arriving faster than they planned. Because every day they keep Sanders in a limited role, they're betting the current depth chart gives them the best chance to win. But with every day he keeps proving himself, that bet looks riskier. The safest move might not be to wait. It might be to find out before someone else forces their hand.